This photographer picked up the moving van and took the risk of starting a business in the saturated market of Los Angeles. Now he's famous for his celebrity and commercial portraiture, incredible composites, and his awesome Photoshop work, all while being colorblind. Plus, the man can sing. Let's do this.
I actually was born in Colorado Springs, but grew up in Tucson. I love to talk, I love to tell stories, and I make every story a little longer than it should be.
Yeah.
So I think this is part of my expressing life. Luckily, it's transposed into now taking pictures, so I like to tell stories with pictures.
What were you like as a kid?
Well, I was always drawing or sculpting or building something, and I was really good at taking things apart. Putting it back together wasn't all that well, but if there was a motor, electric motor on the floor, and my dad took out of a cooler or something, I would tear it apart, just take a look at it and see what was inside of it. But always building something. That was just, I think it's inherently built into my DNA to create.
Tell us how you were in high school.
Well,
were you the athlete, the musician?
I was always in sports and always looking out the window in the classroom situation. So academically, that wasn't my place. I just, didn't excel. I got through, but I didn't excel in the classroom. But outside of the classroom, I was always, like I'd say, in sports. In junior high, middle school, I actually had my first art class, official art class. So prior to that, you just do art projects. But an official art class was like huge to me. It was like, it validated that there was a place for art, in even in a classroom, but even as a possibility that maybe I could do that as a career. So then my freshman year in high school, I took my first photography class and just went nuts. And the best picture I ever took, I accidentally stepped into the field a little bit, and the referee was running down the sidelines, and we collided, and it actually triggered the camera, and I caught the play perfectly.
That's awesome.
So that was the one that ended up in the yearbook.
Okay, so is that when you fell in love with photography?
I did. Eventually, I went into doing landscapes. I wanted to be Ansel Adams.
So you're Joel's assistant today?
Today I am, yes.
Okay, and how did you get a hold of Joel or vice versa?
I saw Joel's work online, and actually first I saw him on YouTube because he did like a lighting tutorial, and I thought his stuff was really good, and he knows his lighting. That's what attracted me. A lot of photographers just go and shoot stuff and they don't know light. He knows light really well, and that's attracted to me because I love light. It's sexy. I mean, you can have a crappy camera and still make amazing pictures with amazing light. So it doesn't really matter what kind of gear you have. So he knows his light. He's been doing it for a long time.
Right.
So as far as doing that, I saw him on YouTube, and then I got his information. I ended up calling him. He was actually in the airport on the plane, taxiing as I called him, and I was like, yeah, I want to meet up for coffee or something. And sometime he's like, yeah. I mean, he was really nice. He wasn't like any other guy. He's very cool family man is what he is. So that's what kind of was cool about him. And I can call him, and he's totally normal. So
well, that says a lot about you and your persistence, because he says that he gets this quite a bit, that he has a lot of people wanting to come in and just kind of stand in and shine his shoes, hold his bags, whatever it is. So do you feel kind of cool being here today?
Well, I'm a small town boy, so I don't really care about the whole, I'm not trying to showboat or anything. I just think it's cool to be around him and
maybe learn from him.
Well, yeah, I mean, you learn stuff better. You can go to school for 6 months and learn amazing things, but you can assist and help someone for 3 weeks and probably learn somewhat to the close to what you learned in school.
That's right.
Because I was actually studying in school for like a year and a half. So I mean, when you are on set, you learn everything. You get to really understand what's going on with the lighting, the equipment, especially the models, model interaction. how you work with them. That's where you really learn. It's not all about the technique. You have to learn on how to work with the models. So it all kind of ties together. It all kind of ties together. Yeah.
I went to a junior college first. Had a professor named Lou Bernal, who was absolutely the best teacher I've ever had. He really got me, I think, sort of excited about photography as an art form. Not just, I mean, it was fun. I thought it was great, but really looked at photography from the art side of things. And then I went on to ASU for 2 years in the Tempe, Phoenix area, and then finished up at U of A in Tucson with a degree in photography. The best thing that the fine arts education gave me was I never doubted that I was an artist. And so when I created for worked for a client, I was always trying to push it in the way that at least I had some influence artistically to that. We always try to do that, but I really forced it. Sometimes I would go too far and the client would say, back off. But apart from that, I've always shot personal assignments. Late 80s, 1990, I produced a coffee table book on the Navajo Indians, and I spent 2 years in the field photographing them. Basically, I walked away from my commercial work and just poured my life into it. If you're not having fun with what you're doing, then you're not doing what you should be doing. So first thing is you have a passion to get up at 5 in the morning, to get up before the sun, and to get that great light. And where someone else goes, there's no way I'm getting up for that. I love people, and I love to photograph people. I love everyone. I think everyone's face is a different story, and I love to bring that out on film or now with digital capture. Here's what's kind of funny is when you are self-employed and you have to knock on doors, you're always promoting yourself. And so for 30 years I've been promoting myself, and sometimes you feel like you're almost always out there bragging. Right. And then sometimes you feel like you want to pull that back. I started out, graduated from the fine arts, and it was tough. We didn't have the information we have today on the web. You can just go, how to build a studio, boom, you know, it's there. I had a hard time knowing where to even start. But luckily I had a studio mate who went to Art Center, and he was a big, dream guy. And we had a studio and we started working there. I learned a lot from him. But started working in advertising, started pounding the streets. First year in business, over 3,000 cold calls. And I showed my book over 200 times. That's how I started. It was pounding the streets. And eventually you get that first job, and then that first cover, the first billboard, the first ad campaign. All those things come eventually. You don't start. I remember the first ad that I had at full page in the newspaper. I bought like 20 copies and sent them to my parents, and it was like a big deal. And I've gone through all that, and the first coffee table book, and all those things. One of the things that I did, I was shooting Type 55 Polaroid positive negative film in a large format camera. I did that for 7 years. I shot over 5,000 sheets of this film, Polaroid film. It's got a negative, and it's not an archival process. So fine art photographers would use it, but that negative wouldn't last for more than maybe 25 years. It start to break down if you even kept it, in good condition. But now with the scanning capabilities came along, I would photograph it, peel it, process it, whatever, and then scan it. Then I had a digital copy of it. So I started shooting that. That became my technique. And I was doing a lot of ad campaigns for Volvo, Visa, a lot of healthcare stuff. Goldman Sachs, Arthur, Matt, Daniel, Midland. I'm trying to think of all the healthcare. A lot of healthcare. Abbott Pharmaceutical. I did a thing for Red Bull this last year campaign, and I shot Reggie Bush, Devin Hester, Rajon Rondo, and Jimmy Rollins. And I just shot last week Troy Polamalu from the Steelers. Karan Clemens he's a silver medalist hurdler. So I got married, and It was a little bit tough winning over my wife's parents because I was an artist, and I'm sure that and I drove a Volkswagen van. I mean, you know, not the best high hopes for your daughter, but to marry an artist driving a Volkswagen van. But yeah, her parents are from Denver, and they are like die-hard Bronco fans. Okay, and so here I'm doing all these ad campaigns, and didn't make a dent with her parents. But when I photographed the Broncos team portrait, I was in like Flint. I did the Broncos team portrait for 10 years and the Rockies for 7 until we left Denver. The one job that kind of stands out that I really had, I think it was in kind of like photo heaven, you know, was I had been working for a power utility company, AES, and I don't know if they are now, but they were the largest power utility company in the world. They had over 200 power plants around the world. So every year they'd send me about 40 days out, which is a big project, and I would go to about 12 countries. And so every year was just a new set of countries. It was just a lot of fun. And I did it for 7 years, 8 years, but toward the end, I sold them on the idea of doing a 4x5 black and white pictorial of their customers. So anyone that's a use of electricity is a customer. So really, I could fly into a country, Kazakhstan, and I could just photograph anyone I found. Wow. And I had this 4x5, I have an interpreter, and we'd go out and we'd just shoot. And I'd strobe them, and I produced some amazing images, and I did it for 2 years. They allowed me to go out for 2 years with them on that.
And that was your favorite project?
I think it was, because it was really in my element, and I had to sell them on the idea, and I actually they were out in Virginia. I had these big prints that I made of portraits, and I met with the 2 owners of the company, and I sat down and said, this is what I think would be a good thing for you. Instead of just having guys in hard hats and gals and whatever in the power plants, have your customer, but do it really artsy. And they made all these prints for their lobbies, and it was really a fun project. I love music, and I love to play, and it's all pretty much just by ear. I'm not a trained musician, but I love to play, and music is it's a creative outlet. So anything for me that's a creative outlet, I'm into. I was in a band and played, and you know, had fun doing that when I had hair. Taking on the force of a hurricane, taking on the strength of 1,000 freight trains, taking on a love I can't explain, taking on you. Taking on uncertainty that is divine. Taking on a new holy lifeline. Taking on a hope I can't define. Taking on you. I can even remember those experts.
That was awesome. You did not fumble once, dude.
Well,
that
kind
is a
of.
real
My fingers,
musician.
I usually have calluses on them.
I
You can see how
know.
indented they are.
I know. The
That's from not
calluses are
playing.
gone.
Not playing. Anyways,
Someone's gonna watch this, and you're in LA now. You're just photographer meets musician.
now you got me
Virgins
sweating
with
on
all-
that one. That's torture. Torture.
That was awesome.
I believe that composites is the future where photography's going. Not that I know where it's going, but I think I could see it happening. Just like when I was strobing somebody outdoors and doing that combo kind of thing back in the 80s, I could see it kind of moving that direction, because instead of just snapping a picture or even on-camera flash, I did something a little different, and I think it was where things are moving. I think with the composites, I could see it moving in that direction. And so I just dove in. And I think having done that, I wouldn't even say I'm early at it, but I'm earlier than most people. And so people have responded to that, the composites and the ability to do that, and extracting someone that we're getting better and better software. Photoshop is amazing in their extract capabilities, and then taking it even further, there's techniques that we're learning every day. I just put out a masking tutorial that I just came across with stuff. I was like, wow, this just changes everything. That, I think, is where the future is going, because of here's one of the main reasons is in the commercial world, advertising world, budgets have been cut. So when I was doing a commercial shoot 5 years ago, we would get the motorhome, we would get the crew of 25 people, and we'd be out on location shooting someone. We had to get permits to get on location, all that stuff, and what a hassle. Now it's like I can bring an athlete into a white suite, boom, I have maybe an hour the most, and sometimes I set up in hotel lobbies, and the athlete's literally on the run. We just bring them in, shoot, boom, out the door we go. And then I go out and I get my backgrounds. So right now, the hardest part about what I do is actually getting the backgrounds. And HDR, I'm shooting everything in HDR. I put everything on a tripod. You can actually hand hold HDR, but HDR, I normally expose 5 exposures with 1 stop increments. So I have a normal exposure, I have 1 over, 2 over, 1 under, 2 under. And what that does is, by running it through either Nik software or their HDR software or Photomatix, I'm able to get detail in the highlights and detail in the shadows that you could not get on one capture. And also it gives me a true 16-bit file, or I can get 32-bit, but true 16-bit. So cameras are capturing 14-bit. They were 12-bit. So now I get a true 16-bit file, which gives me more color palette. And so the images just look amazing. And I try to minimize the tone bit mapping until later when I go into Photoshop. I take and treat the subject and the background the same, so they blend together. But really, the HDR just gives us an option that we can't do in one capture. It gives us more detail in areas that we couldn't get in one capture, and it's just an amazing thing. And Ansel Adams tried to do this with the zone system in black and white, where he was trying to get detail in areas that he couldn't get in one capture. Especially in the desert. The desert is so contrasty. So, and then if it's a real flat day, you can also expand a little bit.
So we're in this big, empty, whatever you call this, meatpacking plant.
Yeah, exactly, former something.
And you're gonna do some HDR for
Well, I'll
us?
just demonstrate. What I love to do is create a background that I'm gonna be able to drop somebody in.
Okay.
As a general rule, what I like to do is either shoot straight on something or maybe on an angle. I would never shoot just slightly angled, okay? So, because if I go to put you in a background, if it's just a slight tweak, it looks kind of weird. So I will shoot either a straight on kind of feel or maybe a 45-degree angle so things taper. I do a lot of forced perspective stuff, which I can do in here real easily.
Is that where tilt shift would come in handy? Is that kind of what you're trying to do?
Not so much that, but yeah, just to be able to, if you look at a lot of my images, I have things that run into a point behind the subject.
Gotcha.
So that just draws you right into the subject. So I look for those things. A lot of that's just kind of naturally, it just happens. I don't know if just from years of shooting, but I think more now, so I look for something that might be a forced perspective. So I can show you right here.
Yeah. So what lens? You've obviously got a wide angle lens.
I have my tilt shift on here. I use, a lot of times I'll use my 16 to 35, which is, I shoot it really super wide, but I do a lot of stitching too, which, not to confuse, I don't have my bracket with me, but I'll shoot this 24 5 times.
and I'll stitch it all together.
Yep.
So I get it super, super wide with that.
Cool.
But in here, this 24 actually works pretty good, and I can shift it up. Let's make sure it's perfectly level here. I can shift it up.
That's cool that you're trying to level it right now. You're trying to do as little post work as possible, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. But you can straighten a lot of stuff in Photoshop.
post.
So what I
You
do,
don't need to be colorblind. Doesn't matter.
I'll find I'm gonna shoot everything at f8, f9, somewhere around the middle. Oh, I'd say the middle, but 2 to 3 stops from wide open
Yep.
is the prime sweet spot of your lens.
Okay.
I've been doing that since my #1 first class in college. Is that you can take a really inexpensive lens, put it at f8, and shoot it on a tripod, and you get a really, really expensive lens and hand hold it. The chances are the inexpensive lens on a tripod will outperform it.
Awesome.
So the sturdier you can get your camera, and the keeping it from wide open or from all the way stop down is going to give you the best performance.
Awesome.
So what I do is I find my natural, what would be, or my general exposure, and what I do in my camera is I flip it over to the 2 stops. This would be 2 stops, 2 stops under. So what I do is I fire off my first one, and because I've had my camera set up at 3 clicks is 1 stop, I just go 1, 2, 3, click, 1, 2, 3, click, 1, 2, 3, click, 1, 2, 3. And normally 5 exposures is going to give me the range I need.
Awesome. Right now, do you have a vision in mind for what you're going to do with the model later, or do you usually
Sometimes
just
I do.
take a landscape or take a
You know what?
photo
It's
already?
kind of both. A lot of
Okay.
times what I do is I'll say, oh, I got this shot of an athlete. I want to put him in something, and I'll look for it. And then there's times when I just say, this could be a great shot. I'm going to have it as a file. And I'll,
You'll archive it and use it if you need to? Cool.
Exactly. So it's really a 3 stop or a 5 stop. Now, what I've done, because this camera could only auto bracket 3 stops, this model, Canon 5D Mark II.
Right.
I will do the auto bracket feature here. So I go to my menu, I go to auto bracket, I say click, and I will go 2 stops under, 2 stops over. So I get only three snaps. So I'll do 2 under, 2 over.
Right.
And I've discovered that actually does pretty good.
Cool.
So if I'm in a pinch and I have to be really in a hurry, which sometimes I'm running from, wall to wall to wall, or I'm if I'm hand holding this, I run the ISO up, I can hand hold and go 3 stops. And so let's do this. I'll hit that. Now, I set it up.
And you're on auto white balance, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I shouldn't be. I should be on daylight. You know what? That somehow got set over there.
Okay.
I'm almost always on daylight.
Okay.
Why'd you pick that out?
I don't know.
Oh
I don't know.
man, that thing is bad. Because I teach everyone, do not go on auto white balance.
Really?
Yes.
Tell us why.
Because if I have someone standing, like say I do a picture of you, this color is going to influence my auto white balance. And I want that. I want your skin to be daylight balanced. So I don't want auto white balance to be, unless I'm in a factory and I got to shoot the factory and there's nobody in it, I'll put it on auto white balance. Something
What if you're in the studio? You're always on daylight?
always on daylight.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so here we go. Watch this. You can hear it go automatically. So it's going 3 stops. So it's going 2 stop under, 2 stop over, and normal. And that's really the simplest way to do it.
And then what about your ISO? Just like to keep it as low as possible? or
Almost
you
always 100, unless I'm hand holding it.
Okay.
So I know that Nikon has usually a 200 ISO as their base. A 200 ISO in here is great. It's all great. The cameras have gotten so good
Yeah.
that really you're pretty safe with keeping it around 200, 400. I don't go much over that. Very rarely.
Yeah.
So.
So now you've taken that's all you do?
Well, what I'll do is I'll literally will run. If I'm out on location, I will go to that brick wall. I'll go down to this section here. I'll turn around. I'll shoot as many angles as I can in here, and then I'm off to the next building or next street.
And then you take it into post and you stitch them all together?
Yep. I run it through Photomatix or Nik their HDR software, and just start get a base, just to get base composite of those either 2 or say 3 or 5 images.
Okay.
Then I don't do too much tone mapping.
Yeah.
Then I bring it into my Photoshop and I run it through my sequence of edging it up.
And what you just did here, it's a good range of your highlights, your darks, everything is
Yeah,
so...
because see, look at the skylight up there. That's so bright up there.
Right.
And then and underneath the raptors over here,
So you would lose the shadows.
you would lose
You
it.
would lose
If
all
I
the
expose for
detail.
that up there, this is pure black.
Right.
If I expose for here, that's pure white. So the HDR gives me the ability to get detail in both shadows and highlights.
And this is something that people use for landscaping, for a
Yeah,
whole
I
bunch
would
of
say this, that digital is the great invention, okay, it's the technology. But in that, the HDR is probably the single greatest tool in my tool belt that says, wow. Okay?
says, I am awesome.
No, this HDR is just killer. And I also do it with portraits. I'll do HDR portraits,
With people.
people,
Really?
with continuous light sources.
Cool. Okay.
So it's really, HDR is just really one of the greatest tools on the planet right now.
Awesome.
So you couldn't do it without digital.
Right.
Another thing I'm doing now is stacking. So I'll take, for example, I can take a tree, and let's say the wind's blowing that tree, and I'll just, not HDR, but I'll just shoot a continuous exposure of that tree going like this. And then in Photoshop, I can either tell it to build up all the movement,
Right.
so that tree becomes a big furry ball,
Cool.
or I can say only bring in what is still. So everything that gets at some point that tree's got some branches that are still, and the next time it's moving,
Right.
it'll build up
Focus.
all the still ones, and I can have a tree that's just, in 30-mile-an-hour wind, that I can shoot enough frames, it'll look like it's still.
Interesting.
So you do that with traffic. You can take all the traffic out of a freeway, or you can add all the traffic together, blur it all into one.
We're with Lauren and Christine. Christine is doing some fabulousness here, right?
Of course.
What kind of look are you going for? What did Joel and you talk about?
Well, we're looking at doing some nice sleek hair. We want to capture, I don't know. We want to just capture just the purity of her coloring and the fairness of her skin, and just accentuate on the dramatic parts, her
Yeah.
eyes and.
So you want just kind of a smooth look?
Yeah, nice and smooth, so that you can capture the depth of the picture.
Yeah.
With her eyes, and have everything else around it be kind of transparent. So we're gonna keep it kind of simple, I think.
Okay.
To have like a nice, elegant, and interesting look to it.
Awesome. So he basically told you to smooth the tops and the sides because that makes it harder during post-processing, right?
I think
Because
so.
if you have just flyaways.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so that it looks fluid. That there's just a fluid look. All the way through from head to toe.
Awesome.
So it's just kind of all continuous.
Right. And you're here in LA, and you work with models and actresses
I do.
and actors, but your favorite thing is
I love doing weddings.
wedding.
I like doing weddings. I like being a part of someone's special day. Usually, they like you they want to feel comfortable with you,
Yeah.
and know that they're gonna look beautiful at the end of it all. But you're sharing a really, intimate moment with them.
Right.
It's a huge part of their history, starting their life. So if they like you and they like what you do and you're a part of that, that's pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah.
So I like
Hopefully
doing
you
that.
don't screw up, huh?
Yeah, and
Then they remember you the
Yeah,
rest of
you
their
don't want
life.
to burn their ear,
For sure.
Yeah.
And then Lauren here, if you guys can see her amazing eyes, she's the model. She's got a really great editorial look. But if you look at her eyes, she actually did that herself, right, Lauren?
I did.
And you've got some fake eyelashes on top and bottom.
Yes, I do.
Or they're your real ones.
No, actually, the
Just
bottoms
kidding.
are individuals.
Oh, are they?
And the top is actually feathers. They're black feathers. They're lashes called Black Velvet by Shuomura.
Oh, wow.
And then I have a MAC pigment that I blended out with some soft browns on my eyes, and then I just went for a really pale, clean look on the face.
Because Joel wanted everything just very simple, but your eyes to just be totally popping out, right?
Yeah, well, everything else is going to be very porcelain-like with the lighting technique he wants to use, and there'll be all white in wardrobe. And so he wanted the eyes and the nails, which I'm going to paint soon.
Are you gonna paint in black?
Probably black, yeah,
Cool.
to pop out and give some contrast.
So do you model quite a bit?
I do. That's kind of my.
That's your
main-
thing?
That's my thing. I'm a model and actress, and I model pretty frequently. I do a lot of print. I've done some runway, and I do a lot of beauty. Kind of do whatever comes my way.
Ben, what's happening here?
Well, we had a piece that we were waiting for, and unfortunately, last minute, the designer wasn't able to come through the piece. So luckily, we have some friends down the street. It's a shop called Them. And,
Them?
Them.
T-H-E-M?
Yeah. It's T-H-V-M, but it's pronounced Them. And they're
Silent V. Okay.
Silent V, Silent V. And so this is actually, she's wearing 3 pieces. This is a long, just simple jersey dress that obviously goes down the floor, which is nice and flowy. And that was made in-house. This is a designer, Anzanvino in Florence. His name's William Anzanvino, and this is one of his pieces.
Is he here in LA?
He's based in downtown LA as well, and so we've got a lot of downtown LA happening. And this is a sample piece which they gave me, and I'm unfortunately, because it's a sample piece, doesn't have a tag, so I'm not sure who the silent designer for this piece is. But she's got 3 layered pieces on, and altogether, I think it's going to be nice, especially with the blown out look. It'll just,
With that lighting that he's got over there, that'll look awesome.
Yeah, and then this is just a vintage piece that is owned privately that I think works well.
Cool. Good work, designer.
Nice
Nice job. Or wardrobeist, whatever it's called. Whatever it is that you do.
I'm an everything guy.
That's awesome. Okay, let's do it. You were talking about that you have some simple rules that you like to go by.
Yeah, it's funny, after 30 years of doing this,
Yeah.
I've sort of narrowed it down to this simple basic rule. The bigger your source in relationship or distance to your subject, the softer the light. So this is a 7-foot octabox, and that's a 5-footer. Okay, and I also have like a 2-footer. So if I take this box and run it 5 feet from you, it is amazing soft light, right? So if I back it up, it's going to get harsher and harsher and harsher.
Right.
You put it way across the room, it's going to take a lot of power to get to you, but it's going to be harsher and harsher and harsher as you back it off.
Right.
So you take a 5-footer and run it 2 feet from you, you can get a very similar light as this at, say, 5 feet. So if you have a 2-foot octabox and you put it like right over the top of someone's head, you get the same quality of light, but because you're only a foot away. I never use a flash meter, and I hardly ever use modeling lights. And the reason is, I want the back of that monitor to be my guide as to what's happening, not modeling lights or not a flash meter. I want that monitor to be my guide and let my intuition tell me if I'm on course or not. So if the light's too hot, if it's too edgy, it's blown out, I can see that on the back of that monitor. And I go, oh, it's too much, so I back it off. If I need that wrap a little bit more to come around the cheek, I move the light. A flash meter can never tell me where to move that light. It just tells me what the power output is. Your intuition is your best guide. And a technical instrument can never make a creative decision. And everyone's skin's a different value.
That's true.
And so Lauren's really light skin, which is really kind of fun to work with. And so you may have to adjust it slightly with the different colored skin, value skin. So a formula is really a dangerous thing to do. So people ask me, what's the ratio? I've never worked in ratios. I have no idea what the ratio is, and I don't care. So basically I've got the back side lights have more power coming out in value, and the overhead is down a little bit.
Okay.
So what that's doing is that's giving me a wrap, value of wrap. And that to me gives more of a 3D look. So you look at my pictures, you say, that has depth.
Right.
So from the early
it's
days,
jumping out at you.
I've always tried to build some kind of depth in there. Because you really, it's two-dimensional and a three-dimensional, we're in a three-dimensional world, but where you have a two-dimensional surface.
Right.
So I want to create that illusion that we talked about.
Awesome. So with your settings here,
Right now, like I said, I almost shoot everything on F9. F8, F9.
So everything is in focus around 8 or 9.
Well, yeah, it's not, but it's more because the prime of the lens is not because of the depth of field.
Okay.
I sometimes go up to about 7.1, f8, f9, somewhere around that range.
And you've got your daylight white balance.
Daylight white balance, which you caught me earlier having it on auto white balance, which I don't know how it ended up there. And then ISO 100.
Okay.
And my speed is at 1/60th to 200. It's just 200 sync speed. I usually bring it just about down a little bit below.
Okay. And you took off your tilt shift. You got your 24 to 105.
24 105.
Okay.
I've got my 51.4. If I end up at a 50, so I'm at about a 50 right now, I will often switch to the 51.4 because
Just put your prime on.
yeah, it's technically a little sharper, and it really does. But until I get kind of the feel of what's going to happen here, I'll keep it on the zoom.
Awesome.
And this is a good zoom.
Yeah, that's a great lens.
It's just, I love the fixed lenses. Photography is a form of communication, and it's really vital that you stay current. And people always ask me, how do you know where the trends are going? And I have a perfect reply to that, is you don't. Nobody knows. But however, the beauty is you can set the trends. And people think, well, how can you set trends? That's like really difficult. It is not if we go back to where I start every workshop, every seminar. I say this one line, and that is, you're unique, and there's no one on the planet just like you. And it's your uniqueness, if you work from your uniqueness, that really is your ace up your sleeve. It's the thing that's going to rock the world. And so what happens is people are always trying to copy someone else. But if you look at music, music is one of the best analogies that we have. Is the people that we love, that we idolize, that we have on our iPad, our iPhones or iPods, are people that stand out. They're unique. They may have, their voice may not be the best voice in the world, but it's unique. Every time you hear them, you go, that's Bob Dylan. Or I say Bob Dylan because my wife hates Bob Dylan. But Bob Dylan rocked the world. He works from his uniqueness. And so when you do, you create something that is not out there. It's different. It stands alone. The one thing that has driven me over the years is not the money in this industry. And I've made some good money, but it's not that. And I've had people that were chasing the money part of being a photographer. And what happens is they end up falling short because it's right, they lose their passion. I am a creative person. I have a passion to create images. And so therefore, because of that drive, it puts me in a position that gets noticed. What happens is you can have all the techniques in the world and produce very boring images. I'm not brilliant, but I do have one thing. I'm a hard worker. Hard work will outperform talent any day of the week. I've never, for 1 second, questioned the fact that I was doing the right thing. And here's another thing, what's really bizarre, and we see this, I got 4 boys, we raised the family, we see one kid that's really strong at this, good at this, and he's kind of weak at this. And you realize that, okay, they're really good at this. All they have to do is bring up that level of their weakness a little bit. And boy, they thrive. Because if you're not an upfront person, okay, but you have to do something that allows you to be upfront, so you're really good at something, but you need to be upfront. Well, once you learn that you can be upfront and just get over that, then someone just, blossoms in that, because now that doesn't hold them back. There's always something that's going to hold us back. Every one of us has something that we think, oh my gosh, I'm not good at. And it keeps us from doing something. I say this all the time, that you can rock the world with one camera and one lens. It doesn't have to be the most highest megapixel camera out there. And so people call me and they say, I only have a 6 megapixel camera. I wish I had the 5D Mark II or something. Say, take what you have. Go out and just do what you love. Do it over and over again and create a body of work
that you can repeat over and over again. Do whatever it is. I do athletes over and over again. I do musicians over and over again. I do fashion. I do the same. I take a certain look and I create it over and over again. So after the 10th time, the 20th time, eventually it starts to come together. I did a whole cactus series, strobed cactus outdoors. Again, this goes back to, something completely outside of my portrait realm. But I went out, I think it was 60 evenings that I went out, late light, and strobed cactus. It took about 60 evenings before I got a body of work that was at least something I could present. And Arizona Highways Magazine ran that. They ran a cover and a 12-page spread inside of that work. And it was black and white, which that magazine normally doesn't run black and white. And so, but it was, I think, unique enough to where it stood out. And so I say that if you keep doing whatever you love and do it over and over again, you will find an audience for it. Here's an artist I love, Ray LaMontagne. You probably don't know who that is, okay? But I love his voice, I love his style of writing, his music is amazing, right? But not too many people know who he is. But there's an audience out there that does, and they love him, okay? So it's no different with photography. You do what you love to do. You may not find the masses to fall in love with your work, but you will find a group of people that will. And so you don't need to have the masses fall in love with your work. It may happen, but the fact is just keep repeating it over and over, build a body of work. And if you want to do gallery stuff, if you walk into a gallery and you say, I want a showing, I want to be able to show my work here, have an exhibit. And they say, what body of work have you been working on? Show me a body of work. You say, well, I shot a really good picture of a sunset over here, and I shot a really good picture of my cat. You need to build a group of images that relate to each other. And it's a series. You got to think in series. Even when you do advertising, when you are knocking on doors for advertising agencies, you have to present a body of work that works in a series. You want to say, here's athletes, okay? Portraits. You notice that I hardly do any athletes that are, in motion. I do a little bit now, but never during competition. It's not my thing. I don't like it. So I walk into an ad agency, I show them portraits of athletes. And they say, we have this job, but it's action, event. I'm like, you got the wrong person. You can't do that. And so I'm not trying to sell something I don't do or try to get in, I've done a lot of different work over the years, but the fact is that I'm trying to sell Joel Grimes, I'm branding Joel Grimes, and this is what I love to do, and here's what I present to my audience. Do something that's close to you, that you can go back to every day. And I walk these streets down here doing HDR. I'm up all the time shooting, repeating. You see a lot of my old rustic backgrounds. It's right around this neighborhood, a lot of them. Or I'm driving off somewhere down here and I'll just pull over and I'll wait for late light and I'll just walk the streets. So I'm creating, the same thing over and over again. It's a 100% guarantee that you will be rejected. Nobody likes to be rejected. Okay? So if you crumble the first time you get rejected, which we all have, it's pretty devastating. But just remember, that's just going to be a daily experience. If you put yourself out there in the art world or in the creative world or whatever it is in photography, it's just rejection is just a part of the way life is. But most people give up before they get that. You have to overcome the fear of rejection. And if you can't pick up the phone and make a cold call, you'll never make it. Every day I have to make a cold call or something. I have to exert myself out there to say, this is Joel Grimes, this is what I do, please hire me. You have to present yourself. It's a tough arena because rejection comes every day, and once you realize that rejection is part of the game, you move through it. You just, it's just part of the process, and you don't internalize it. But we internalize it, and I did in the beginning, and then now I've learned that, it's just, there's not times, I'm not unshakable, let's put it that way. But it is not, it's a situation where I realize it's just a numbers game.
And I had learned that early on. After 3,000 cold calls and, you know, to get in the door, I learned that, you know, it takes a lot of hard work to get your foot in the door. You are unique. There's no one on the planet just like you. Here's what I would say when it comes to, you know, giving advice to people who are starting out, when it comes to buying equipment. Buy what you can afford. Don't go in debt or hawk the house to get a piece of equipment. Take what you have and shoot. Don't think, I'm not going to shoot because I don't have the lens that I want. I only have 2 lenses. I'm waiting for the 3rd lens. UPS hasn't showed up, or I can't afford it, so I'm not going to shoot. Shoot with what you have and just go out and create. And then later, when you get the money, you buy that extra lens. When you get the money, you buy an extra light. You buy the bigger box, whatever it is. Don't get caught up.
So work with what you have.
Work with what you have. 1 lens, 1 camera, you can rock the world.
Cool. Well, let's rock the shoot, Joel.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'm Joel Grimes. I'm a commercial advertising photographer, and I've just been framed.
No see.
Ah! I cannot believe you guys got me to play the guitar.
It was awesome.
That was